Welcome to today's video, where we'll delve into one of the most chilling and mysterious murder cases of the 20th century, the deadly phone call. This case is filled with unanswered questions, strange occurrences, and an ominous connection between the victim's last moments and a series of eerie phone calls. It's a story that leaves us wondering, could a simple phone call be the key to one of the most terrifying crimes? In 1959, in Kansas, a young woman named Janet Shaw became the victim of a crime that would shock her community and remain unsolved for decades. Her murder, tied to a series of strange and foreboding phone calls, has captivated the imagination of many. Was it a coincidence? Or was someone sending her a message long before tragedy struck? Let's walk through the events of this sinister case, piece by piece, and see if we can uncover the truth behind the deadly phone call. Janet Shaw was a young woman living in Kansas, with a bright future ahead of her. She had just started a new job and was beginning to carve out her place in the world. By all accounts, Janet was friendly, outgoing, and well-liked by those around her. She lived a quiet life, but like many young people at the time, she was looking for excitement and adventure. She had recently moved into her own apartment, a small but cozy space where she could enjoy her independence. Everything seemed normal in Janet's life until one fateful evening. Her friends and family describe her as someone who always kept in touch, a woman who was both responsible and sociable. She wasn't one to shy away from making plans or attending social gatherings. But little did she know, her life was about to change forever. It all began with a phone call. Late one night, Janet Shaw was at home alone in her apartment. The phone rang, and she answered. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, but not out of the ordinary. It was a man, but his voice was distorted in a way that made it difficult to understand exactly what he was saying. He seemed to be trying to communicate something, but it was muddled and unclear. There was a sense of urgency in his words, but it didn't seem like a typical call. After that night, strange calls continued. These weren't the usual hang-ups or misdialed numbers. They were eerie, unsettling calls, where the voice on the other end seemed to know things about Janet's life, details that shouldn't have been shared by a complete stranger. Some of these calls were silent, with nothing but the sound of heavy breathing. Others were filled with cryptic messages that sent a chill down Janet's spine. The man seemed to be warning her of something, though it was never clear what. The frequency of these calls grew, and Janet started feeling increasingly paranoid. She shared her concern with a few close friends, telling them about the disturbing conversations and odd messages. At first, they brushed it off as a prank, just some harmless, anonymous calls. But as the calls continued and the voice grew more aggressive, Janet began to worry about her safety. Then came the fateful night of her murder. It was a quiet evening, much like any other, and Janet was home alone. She had just finished a phone conversation with a friend when the phone rang again. This time, the voice on the other end was clearer than ever before. The man's voice was cold, and he spoke directly to her, saying something that sent a shiver down her spine. "You won't be safe for much longer." The voice seemed almost predatory. Janet was terrified, but she hung up the phone, trying to calm herself. She immediately locked all her doors and checked her windows, but something inside her told her that she was not alone. The room felt colder, the silence more oppressive. Around midnight, a neighbor heard what sounded like a scream coming from Janet's apartment. When the police arrived, they found the door ajar. Janet was lying motionless on the floor, her life taken by a brutal attack. The crime scene was chilling. There were no signs of forced entry, and nothing seemed to have been stolen. It was as if the killer knew her and had been able to move through her apartment without detection. The investigation into Janet Shaw's murder was swift but baffling. Detectives found that Janet had been receiving a series of ominous phone calls leading up to her death. They also discovered that there were no fingerprints, no trace of the killer, and no weapon left behind. It was as though the person who had killed Janet had vanished into thin air. The police were left with few clues, but one thing stood out: the phone calls. The authorities traced the calls back to public phone booths, but the trail went cold. There was no way to identify the caller or figure out their motives. The case soon became a cold case, and Janet Shaw's murder remained unsolved. The most chilling aspect of the case was the fact that the killer had been taunting Janet long before the attack. The phone calls had been a warning, but they were too cryptic and confusing to make any sense of at the time. Janet's family and friends were left grappling with the mystery of why she had been targeted and who was behind the phone calls. To this day, the murder of Janet Shaw remains unsolved, and the chilling phone calls she received before her death are still a subject of intrigue. Was it the work of a disturbed stalker, or was it something more sinister? An act of vengeance or a random killing by a person who found pleasure in torturing their victim from afar? The case has never been closed, and with each passing year, the mystery grows deeper. The eerie, cryptic phone calls Janet received in her final days are a haunting reminder of the terrifying reality that sometimes danger comes from places we least expect. The story of Janet Shaw is a tragic reminder of how one seemingly innocent phone call can lead to devastating consequences. It raises unsettling questions about the true nature of the human psyche and the darkness that can lurk in seemingly ordinary lives. Despite the passage of time, the case remains an unsolved mystery, and the haunting voice on the other end of the phone will forever echo in the minds of those who follow this chilling tale. What do you think happened to Janet Shaw? Who was behind those disturbing phone calls? And what was their motivation? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story as chilling as we did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on more mysterious cases like this one. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.